Good evening, Leadville Racers. My name is Mike Iddings, and I'm the host of the YouTube channel GetMyBuckle. This channel is all about the Leadville first timer and Leadville itself. The race, the course, the people, the crew, who knows? Whatever we decide it's going to be about. Today's guest is Kelly Brait, and she is a sea-level flatlander from Chicago who entered last year, ended up doing the camp, and came out and did the race and finished in under 12 hours. So I think we'd like to hear her story, figure out what her journey was, what were some of her defeats, some of her victories, and she's going to let you guys know what to expect and, leave you a few tips so the newbies can cross that finish line in under 12 hours. So Kelly, thank you very much for taking the time out of your day.
Thank you for having me.
How's Chicago right now?
Chicago has been very rainy, very flat. But yeah, Chicago's good. It's starting to be spring, so that's always more optimistic.
Well, today's May 9th. I live at 8,000 feet in the Rocky Mountains of Colorado, and it was snowing again today. Yeah. Yeah, I think, what was it, yesterday? Today's Wednesday. Yeah, yesterday I pulled out and it was going to go for a ride after work. And at my house, I can go up Squaw Pass, which is just a continuous climb for an hour and a half. It's great. Snowing. So I had to drive down all the way into Denver, park at Red Rocks Amphitheater, and then come up Denver and parallel the highway and get my hour-long interval without snow. So it's avoiding the snow right now. Spring in the Rockies is crazy.
Yeah, it sounds a little too bad for myself having to trudge through the rain to work today.
All right. So how did you, what got you to the point where you said, I am going to put my name in the hat for the Leadville Trail 100?
I I had been working out at my friend's gym for a while, and she has a history of endurance races. She's done several marathons, and she was more like running endurance, but she knew about the race, and she said, do it with me, it'll be fun. And I said, okay. I had no idea what it was. I had no idea about the history. I hadn't biked more than 30 minutes or like an hour long, soul cycle class in my life. I signed up, and I was lucky enough to get into the lottery, but I had no idea what I was doing. My background is in like sports with a ball, so I'm more of like a power athlete, not an endurance athlete. I had no idea how to train. I didn't even own a bike at that point.
Did not own a bike. Entered, got the confirmation email from Lifetime Fitness. You're in, and you're sitting there on the couch reading your email going, oh, great. I don't even have a bike.
Yeah. Yep.
Love it.
Yeah. So I got, there was a what's that bike that everybody got during the pandemic for their inside their homes?
Peleton.
Yeah. There was a Peleton at my gym. And so I got shoes that fit that. And I started doing workouts on that bike. But then, the panic just started to kind of seep in as like February, March happened, April happened, and I had still no bike, still no idea what I was doing.
Still no bike in April?
Still no bike in April. Yeah, I didn't have my bike until a week before camp. Yeah.
Oh my God.
I was egregiously underprepared. Yeah.
Yeah. Holy cow. There you go, first timers. Proof. Yep. You don't even have to have a bike until April? No, June. Yeah. You don't even have to bike till June. You can still finish the Leadville Trail 100. Just ask Kelly.
Yeah.
Holy.
Yep. So I did a lot of things wrong. I don't know that I did as many like quantifiable things wrong as your funny story of your first time, but I did so many things wrong. I didn't have a training plan to start with. And I was overtraining. I like, you know, my my kind of background and my way of thinking was kind of like more is better and harder is always better. And if, you know, the workout says to do 1 hour, then I'm going to do 2. And it was like I had all the signs of overtraining. Like I was just sweating, like having the night sweats when I was working out. I was sweating like crazy. And there was a point in late May, when my body just shut down because I had no training plan and I was just kind of going as hard as I could every single day on that Peloton. And my body kind of rejected it and said, this is the stupidest thing that you could be doing. And I like, it just kind of shut down. The overtraining just put me out of commission for like 2 weeks. And during that time, I got a training plan, which is a phenomenal idea for first timers. I just used Training Peaks, and you can buy training plans that you can set for like 12 weeks out from the date of the race. I got some nutrition advice. I got some supplement advice. So that helped to have some direction and some clarity. And I probably would have benefited from having that earlier in my training.
Yeah, sure. So
because it felt a little stressful.
Right. So for your first timers, you have to be careful not to, if you don't have a plan, you have to be careful not to overtrain, like Kelly said. Yep. And, Chris Carmichael, Lance's coach, coach of the year back in the day, his saying is, don't overcook the sauce, which is a perfect example of Kelly, where she's just more, and not always the right way to go. And a coaching plan really helps. There's plenty of them out there. And CTS, Carmichael Training Systems, has aligned with our channel, GetMyBuckle, and they're offering to waive the athlete registration fee if you use the code GetMyBuckle. So there's help on the coaching program if you want to go that route. So, all right, really thanks. It was a perfect time to plug that. So
that was seamless. Right? Yeah. Yeah, the training plan was really great because, it's a different world, and our endurance sports, it's just a different approach, right? And so understanding that I could do the workout could be 90 minutes and it's sprints, and that is just kind of a full balance of the training program. And rest was really important too. I started taking magnesium baths, like Epsom salt baths, to help with like the muscle recovery. So that was really helpful too, to just take care of myself in rest as well as while I was working. So that was beneficial.
Oh, rest is huge. Rest is huge. And if anybody's, not as young as she is, like myself, you need the rest and recovery for sure.
Yeah, and
so you got your program
too. Yeah, got the quality of rest too.
Quality rest, right? It's important.
I got my program, so that was really helpful. And then the friend that had encouraged me to do the race also got me. She introduced me to a bike gym that's in Chicago, Vision Quest, and they're phenomenal. A lot of triathletes and a lot of cyclists, and so they had classes where you're on a CompuTrainer, but you're riding a course, and so you're learning how to shift gears. You're learning how to pedal stroke. Like I had no understanding, right? Like I was a pusher, right? Didn't know how to engage my hamstrings. I didn't know, how to strategize about shifting gears, and that going uphill, you shouldn't be just like going as hard as you can. You go into an easier gear and you just kind of go a little bit slower for longer. So my learning curve was extremely steep, but having people who knew just what they were doing in the sport period was really, really helpful. It was very much like drinking from a fire hose, even learning how to clip in and out of the bike. My very first race that I did on my bike with my clips in, we went out the day before because I'd never ridden on my bike with clips. And I fell about 1,000 times. Came back into the house, my hands were all bloody and scraped up. And so ever since then, whenever we've done a bike race, my friends and I will kind of take bets on, over under how many times Kelly falls, how fast Lori's gonna do hers or whatever. And so even at Leadville, I I had done such a great job. I had gotten like through the pipeline on the way back, and I pulled up to the aid station. So I'm like, 3/4 of the way through, more than that. And as I'm pulling up to the aid station to refill my water bottle, I came to a full stop and I couldn't unclip. And so I fell that one time. So I had to tell them at the end that I still did fall once.
Oh my goodness.
There's so many things to learn about just, how to do it. I mean, even the pace line, right? Like that was something that I learned from you that I'd never even known before. And there are all these little things that help you either train better or perform better and just make it a little bit easier on yourself because you're kind of working smarter, not harder. So that was one thing that I really liked.
Nice. Yeah, for sure. I mean, there are a ton of things that you can do, to save time, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't have a cycling background, you just don't know.
Right.
And you, part of your training program was to go to camp, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So can you expand a little bit on your camp experience and how how'd you find out about it? Just that whole process of the camp.
Mm-hmm. Well, so during registration, I saw that I think by signing up for camp, it guaranteed you a spot in the lottery. I think so, because I wanted to make sure that I got in because my friend had signed up the year before but deferred. So she knew she was going to go. So I wanted to, one, secure my spot, and two, I had no idea what I was doing. So I figured if I'm going to do this, I want to do it kind of as well as I possibly can,
Sure.
within 5 weeks. But but going to camp was by far and away the best decision I made as a first timer. And everyone, even at the bike gym, was so supportive of that decision because there are just so many things that you pick up that you don't even know you don't know. Even like the downhill clinic was probably one of the things I was most grateful for right in the beginning, because that was the scariest part about mountain biking for me, because I had so little control and I really didn't know how to safely go downhill on a mountain bike with unpredictable terrain and brakes and all of that. So learning about body posture, that just it was empowering, right, to know that I could navigate this in a way that I felt more confident and more safe. So right off the bat, it was very helpful. And then, you get to meet other people, you talk to other people, and there were so many, obviously, you were a godsend to me, just the different people that are just willing to share knowledge. You just, like, the whole camp period was a lot of really great information for people that, especially for people that don't really know kind of what to expect.
Right.
And writing the course too, right? That was really helpful on race day, because at least I knew that I had seen almost everything. And so having those little reminders in my head, okay, at camp, this is what, this coach was saying to do. And at camp, this is what coach was saying to do. So it kind of helped me, it helped me remind myself little strategies during the race too.
Right. And for you, if any of you first timers are considering camp, Friday night, or Thursday night, I don't know, but the first night of camp, we go out and just right above the Lifetime retail store, we go up there and we just go up, we ride up the pavement, we come down a little dirt section, little curve, come back to the pavement, and we just do loops. And the people like Kelly's from Chicago, flatland, sea level, doesn't have the Rocky Mountains, doesn't have the volleyball sized rocks that you've got to avoid and navigate through. And it just is it's an introduction to the Rocky Mountains at 10,000 feet, and it allows you to, get a feel for what the track's going to be. And then the next day we go out and we start actually riding the course, but there's a little bit of downhill introduction, which sounds like you said you're really grateful for that. And I could totally make sense if you're coming from, flat pavement.
Mm-hmm.
Two different worlds.
Yeah. Well, because I mean, I think a lot of people tend to like uphill or tend to like downhill more than uphill because you're going fast, it's easy. But I prefer uphill because I have control, right? Even if I'm going slower, even if it's harder, I'm not afraid of it, right? And so the downhill, I didn't always feel like I had control. So that was helpful to just have a little bit more knowledge of how to navigate doing this part of mountain biking safely.
Right.
Especially because coming down Columbine, there were a lot of people that wiped out a little bit because there are some sections that do get really fast, or the turns are really narrow, and so it's a good skill to know.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, there's plenty of descending at the Leadville Trail 100. Okay, so how did you like day? After the descending clinic, we went out and started to ride some of the course. What's some of your feedback there?
I was so nervous. You're gonna be so disappointed. That was my longest ride to date. And
you mean the second day we rode? Yeah. It was the longest ride to date?
Yep. Oh yeah, I was again extremely underprepared, but really happy to be there. So it was my longest ride, and I was nervous because I hadn't been there before. I didn't know fueling strategies. I didn't know kind of how to pace myself. I didn't really know kind of what, because so many people talk about the matches, right? And don't burn too many matches too early on. And I had no frame of reference for what that looked like for me. Sure. So camp was a great way to force some of that learning just by trial and error. Yep.
That's funny.
Yeah.
That's really funny that was your longest ride to date.
Yep.
Training. And I think camp last year was at the end of June, right?
Yeah, it was less than a month, I think. We're about a month away from race day. Yes.
All right, you first timers, don't follow Kelly's volume training plan.
No, it was, well, I mean, unfortunately, the idiocy of my training prior to having a training plan put me in a position where I was training at a really kind of compact rate, which it stressed me out a lot, right? Because a lot of it was I didn't know because I hadn't been there. And so I think a lot of the training plan, in addition to preparing your body for this, it also gives you the confidence that you have been there, and so your body recognizes this kind of work and kind of falls into that pattern, which I didn't really have.
Do you remember when we took off day one? We parked at Pipeline and we were heading toward Twin Lakes, and the weather was not good. Do you remember that? Were you prepared?
Not really, no. If you can imagine. But I remember.
I think that was the MO of her 2024 or 2023 Leadville. I'm not prepared.
Yep, I
I
had
don't have
no
a
idea what
bike.
I was doing.
I've overtrained. Now I'm not training at all. I still don't have a bike. I don't, I don't have, the weather's terrible and it's raining and it's gray and it's lightning and I don't have a rain jacket.
Yep,
Oh
but
my
I've got a
goodness.
good attitude. That was, I think, that kind of carried me through, was the just being thrilled to be in the environment and to be kind of challenging myself in a new way. Plus it's beautiful, right? There are so many different sections of the race, and you know, knowing a little bit about what the course looks like, some of it's a slog and it's really, you're not happy about it, but it's only 3 miles long. And so then, you get to, well, then there's this fun part because you get to do this then, so that was helpful, learning the course and experiencing the terrain, because I'd never ridden single track before. I'd never ridden in sand before. I'd, never navigated boulders before, right? Like you were teaching me kind of about front wheel going this way and then back wheel kind of skirting around a different way. So it doesn't have to be entirely linear that you're navigating these rocks. A lot of different little, I guess, nuggets of information that that you wouldn't necessarily get if you were just sticking to a program, or even listening to some podcasts about Leadville. They focus on a lot of really good big ideas, but some of the little details and the minutia of actually being on the ground doing it, I think camp was really beneficial for.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, it's good to hear. And this year we're doing camp is June, what is it, 13th this year, 14th, something like that. It's early June.
Yeah.
So are you doing camp again?
No, no, I've got a million weddings this year. And so of course, showers and bachelorette parties and stuff all are falling around that time. So unfortunately, those are taking priority this year.
But you're still doing the race for 2024.
Mm-hmm.
And again, and take a look at her. This is the sea level flatlander who didn't have a bike until June.
Yeah. Well, so that was another thing. The pacing strategy, right? There are 4 or 5 different cutoffs. And so in my head, when I was thinking about the race the day before, we had done kind of that little shake out the legs ride. And on my way back to where I stayed, I was thinking about, it was doing the math in my head. Okay, 12 hours divided by 105 miles is, 9 something an hour, whatever, 9 something an hour that I wanted to do. However, for the first cutoff, at First Twin Lakes, you have to ride faster than that. And so I was looking at the first 10, 15 miles as just a warm up. And I was telling myself, I'm just warming up. There's no rush. I've got all the time in the world, just kind of keep this pace for myself. And this wonderful woman who I kind of seesawed with for most of the ride, reminded me with 20 minutes left that we had to make this first cutoff, and I had completely forgotten about it. And so that was, it's stupid, but that's a good thing to remember, that the cutoffs have different kind of pacing strategies around them. And so I made the first cutoff with maybe 15 minutes to spare, because you have to ride faster in the first 40 something miles. And then, the pace can kind of find some equilibrium, but you do have to remember that there are certain cutoffs to hit, even if you're riding in a way that'll get you under 12 hours. So that's a good reminder.
Well, cutoff times are a big deal.
Yeah.
If you're a 12-hour bubble racer, cutoff times are huge. And GetMyBuckle has top tube stickers with the cutoff times and little blank that you can write your own projected time on to keep track of, how you're tracking during the day. All right. So, okay. So we got through camp. You like camp.
Yep.
You went back to Chicago. you had your own bike,
Yep.
you had your pedal, your clipping pedals.
Yes.
All right. And so what was some of your training between camp and Leadville?
A lot of it was, well, you had kind of said at camp, the hay's in the barn, right? And so a lot of that time in between for me was trying to fine tune some of the mechanics of the riding, trying to make sure, especially in the first couple big weeks after camp, still going to my bike gym and really getting a handle on the gear shifting and understanding kind of how to make it most efficient on my body, so that I wasn't unintentionally burning matches where I wasn't really supposed to. That kind of the psychology of riding with changes in elevation, I had to get used to. So putting in that work, and then yeah, just time on the bike, getting used to the practicing nutrition, right? I've heard people joke that Leadville is an eating race disguised as a bike, or an eating competition disguised as a bike race.
Right.
So getting used to fueling on the ride, and I have no elevation here, right? But I would go to hills and practice while I was going uphill, getting a couple pretzels or taking a drink of water, because that, you don't have much flat to work with to refuel. So I was practicing that a lot. Yeah.
Just getting psyched.
Yeah. I think my mindset played a lot into, I think, the success of the day, because the weather is always entirely unpredictable. We ended up having a really perfect day, I think, but for the few days beforehand, I was kind of doing some mental practice as well, because I wanted to make sure that my attitude was kind of fortified against all of these things. I was practicing during training, I'm in the pain cave and I'm chipping away at it and trying to, be curious about that discomfort instead of rebelling against it. Because you expect to be uncomfortable, you expect for it to suck, you expect for it to be hard, and, for you to be ready for it to be over before it is. And fortunately, that kind of practice that I was doing from the mental game too, I think really, really paid off. Because, and you just get swept up in the adrenaline of the race, because you're not there just training by yourself anymore, or with a couple of people. You've got a jillion people around you, and some of them are really happy to be there, some of them are really struggling, but you kind of feed off that energy. Yeah, there was only one time I was trying to be encouraging, and we were going up power line, and I said something encouraging to somebody, and you could tell he was just not having it, because we were all hiking, doing hike a bike, and he was trudging. And that was another thing too, I think, that you had recommended, was practicing walking with your bike, because it puts a different kind of strain on your body, and if you're not really expecting it, then your calves can get really uncomfortable, your lower back can get really uncomfortable. Like if you're hunched over holding your handlebars instead of upright holding the seat, that in and of itself is a little skill to practice, because you're going to be doing it most likely.
Right, you're going to be doing it. And speaking of hike a bike, if you can, what side are you going to push from, left or right? How are you going to get back on your bike? Practice that, when you're at home. If you're able to get to Colorado, practice starting in the middle of the climb. Get off your bike, push, get back on your bike, clip in, get going. Because it's, if you're a 12-hour bubble racer, you are going to be pushing. And if maybe you're in good enough shape, but it's going to be the people in front of you, the group that you're riding with, everybody, when they get to Columbine from probably 10 and a half hours back, is pushing. So there's going to be a lot of that going on. And when you push, if you can push with your whole foot onto the ground. And don't push with your toes, the front of your biking shoes. That's not that's not how to do it, because you will end up probably straining your calf muscles. So if you can push with the whole foot as you're walking up, it's going to be a lot better on your body and your legs, in my opinion, for sure.
Yeah.
So
That was one thing that I didn't expect, or really didn't consider, was just by virtue of being kind of in that blue and white corral, you're with people who are getting off at almost every ascent to walk their bike. And it's really, really hard to navigate because there are just the sheer density of people. So knowing and not letting yourself get frustrated about the fact that you're having to negotiate all these other people trying to do the same race. And I think that's another thing that camp was really helpful for me was etiquette, right? I didn't know to really think about, okay, well, I should stay as far right as possible. Even if I'm pushing my bike up against, some larger rocks, I'm walking my bike. So the bikers behind me have the right of way. I need to give them as much space as possible. Those kinds of like little pieces of etiquette on the trail, I think were really helpful for me to know. And it helped me, I think, be a more kind of considerate bike hiker when I had to do that.
well, right, and it's going to help everybody, right? And here's some more first timer advice. The first climb of the day, St. Keven, there's a lot of people going up it at the same time, and if the front guy or anybody in front of you clips out and starts pushing, there's probably going to be an accordion effect or a domino effect, and there are going to be a lot more people pushing. And if that's you, get to the right, get as far right as you can, because the people who can ride, let them ride. Give them, they've trained a little bit better. They didn't have the unfortunate circumstance where the guy in front of them fell. Let them go. Get off to the right, give them some room. And if you hear somebody coming up that's saying, I'm riding, I'm pedaling, let me by, and you're pushing, give them the right of way. Let them ride up. Because if the situation is reversed and there's a climb later on in the day and you're the guy riding, you're going to want to keep riding. It's faster. So, pay it forward. If you're pushing, move over, give the guy the line. If you have to stop for a second, fine. Let that person by, get pushing again, get back on your bike as soon as you can. But, it really helps to keep the rest of the flow going. And you might be the rest of the flow at a different part of the course. So,
yeah. And like you said, the practicing, because you might be forced into a position to get off your bike before you really want to. Like you said, practicing getting back on the bike and riding again in the middle of the ascent it's important and it's necessary, because you might find yourself in that position, especially if you're if you're in kind of that denser population of people that are likely getting off and walking. Then that's helpful if you can kind of work your way around and get back on, because you have said that so many times that riding is much faster than walking. So
riding's faster. So Daniel Baggendorf made this. He sells them on Etsy. Pretty cool. It's a 3D print of the course. And we are talking about, if you are climbing this and you have to get off for push, whatever, you roll a rock, you clip out, and you've got to get started again on this kind of steep hill, or this one, this is Columbine. It's a good thing to practice that, because it's, if you don't have the right technique, it's tough to do, so instead of having to push another 50 yards to get to a flat spot, if you can learn how to do that, practice it, it's going to help you out quite a bit. So, all right. So how was what was your race morning like?
Race morning. So the night before, we had laid out our gear, had our packing lists, our food lists. And so my friend's girlfriend and my friend were there as our crew. And, like people have said, you can do this crewless. But Megan was there, and Tracy and I were going on a road trip immediately after the race. So she had come out to support me. So we had listed out all of our food, and kind of we had bundled it together, and we had our, you know, our bags for at Twin Lakes. This is what we're gonna kind of switch out at, you know, Twin Lakes back. This is what we're gonna switch out. And so the morning was kind of going through that checklist and, you know, checking the weather, that kind of stuff, making sure that making sure that we had everything, and then getting to the starting line, because, you know, you get there well over an hour before the start time. And it's just kind of that sitting and waiting game. And man, I put on so many layers. I think, again, didn't know what I was doing, but I think starting colder makes sense. And having an idea of what is comfortable in colder weather. And it's hard, right? Because it's August. And so you haven't really had very many months of riding, you know. It's been several months since you've been riding outside in the cold, but having an idea of what your kind of layering strategy is and your comfort there, I think is something that I would have benefited from, because I just had simply too many clothes on. And having to kind of figure out, like, okay, well, I'm taking this off, where am I going to put it? I'm too hot. So that would be something I would recommend, is having a more concise wardrobe that you feel confident in, and just being okay with being a little bit cold for an hour and a half, because you can warm up really, really quickly.
This is true. And here's a plug for Get My Buckle coaching. I do course strategy coaching. I help the first timers with all the things that she's talking about right now: clothes, gearing, fueling, what to expect, you know, what to carry, what not to carry. So reach out, Mike at getmybuckle.com, and we can have a conversation about that.
And I will certainly say that you are a wealth of information, and I was really so grateful to have been able to kind of get some of your guidance through camp and afterward.
Well, thanks.
Very helpful.
All right. So another thing about the start is going to be cold. It might be 34 degrees, might be 36, might be 38. If you're lucky, it's 42. You know,
Yeah.
if you're lucky. And then when you take off, you've got 20 to 35 minutes, depending on what corral you're in, before you start your climbing. And you are descending for that amount of time. And it's cold. I mean, it's really cold. I mean, you said you were overdressed, which probably served you well on that portion, but then as soon as you started the climb, it was an immediate overheat.
Yep.
Yeah. And then stopping. And another first timer tip: if you could take your clothes on and off while you're riding, when you get to the bottom of St. Kevin and it's time to start climbing, you can ditch clothes there. It's not littering, because I cleaned the course up the next day. So you can ditch your clothes, wear stuff that you don't need to recover. If you have to recover it, I'll post it on Facebook and we'll try and get it back to you if it's something nice. But I mean, if you can go to the secondhand store, Goodwill, pick up some shell stuff, a vest, something like that, gloves. That way, when you get to the St. Kevin climb, just toss it and you're keep moving. Don't stop, undress, repack your hydration pack. All that does is eat time. And you're racing against the clock, and 12-hour bubble racers don't need to do that. That is a bad move. It does not serve you well. You want to be able to take your stuff off, get rid of it, have your other rain gear on your bike, in your jersey pocket, something like that. So if it turns poor weather later, you still have something to keep warm. You just don't have the heavier things for the start. So yeah, that logistic stuff is important.
It is. And one of the things, again, grateful to camp, because I was exposed to things that I would never have thought of. The descent from Columbine was freezing. And, you know, it doesn't matter how kind of nice of a day it is, just the wind chill and you're sweating. I was miserable. So I had known to kind of pack a more like wind resistant shell for that descent. And I had carried it, I had it in my kind of transition bag at Twin Lakes, and I had carried it with me so that when I did get to the top of Columbine, I put that on, and I put on another layer of gloves. I put on, I've been doing the latex gloves. So that actually helped a lot, because it's a long descent too. And it's a long time to be uncomfortable, and you're clenching, and just that bad posture too ends up, it would have been worse for me. So kind of knowing that those things are coming and being able to prepare for them, I think, is a really helpful thing as well.
Right. And if you're, if you've never been to Leadville in the Rocky Mountains at 12,000 feet, you need to understand that weather can change in a moment.
So fast.
And you're climbing up, and it's 85 degrees when you start the ascent at the bottom of Columbine. And then you get up toward tree line, and without you knowing it, the storm is moving in. And then all of a sudden you break tree line, and you're up there, and here is the black cloud, and it starts to spit rain, and then that turns to sleet, and then that turns to hail, and it just keeps coming, and then it goes back to sleet and back to rain, and you're wet and you're freezing cold, and you push up and you get to the turnaround, and you have a cup of ramen soup to warm up a little bit, and you're shaking, and now you've got a 40-minute descent. You are going to freeze if you're not prepared.
Mm-hmm.
And that is Colorado weather for sure. And Leadville, oh man, look out, be ready.
Yeah,
So
I
you
just got
said
a glimpse of it, but it's
what?
no joke. I just got a glimpse of it when I was there, and it's kind of awe-inspiring how you're just at the whim of the mountain weather. But if you're unprepared, it can be really, really uncomfortable.
Oh, it could be a day ender.
Yeah.
There's hypothermia all the time when it rains up at Columbine. All right, so you said you started the White Corral?
I did, yes. I think
You did?
being in camp gets you blue,
Oh.
but I wanted to ride with my friend.
Okay, so what was share your White Corral experience on the start?
A lot of nervous energy. A lot of it's a mixed bag too of kind of first timers who really don't know what they're doing and are maybe kind of less strong riders than the people in the forward corrals. But then also you have a lot of really strong riders who, for whatever reason, like the way that they for whatever reason, I think there are just some reasons that if they don't have, qualifying times, or if they didn't do a race that year or something like that. So you end up having some people though that are coming really, really hot out of the gate, trying to, go as fast as they can because they're stronger riders. So that was that was something I didn't expect. But yeah, we're just kind of, walking our bikes after the gunshot goes off, which is always just so thrilling, right? You're just walking your bikes kind of to the front, and it's a lot of people. It's really dense. And that was another thing that I hadn't really trained for or expected, was being in kind of that school of fish of bikers that are just trying to kind of move forward. So that was a little unnerving, but you just, do your best and try not to cut anybody off, try to keep your line,
Stay safe.
Yep.
Stay safe. Manage the space around you. You keep people from getting too close to you. You keep from getting too close to other racers. You manage some space. Be safe until you get to the point where you start climbing, or it starts to spread out, because it is a madhouse, and you can end your race immediately in that first section. I mean, it's terrible.
I think people, you get antsy because you've got all this nervous energy that you just want to expend, and you're feeling like, okay, well, we got to go, I need to ride faster than this. But especially even for the first few miles, you're kind of, going with the flow, and then eventually it does spread out, and especially at the kind of bottom of St. Kevin's, I think midway through the climb, it spreads out more.
Right. And just for clarification, if you if you entered the lottery and got in and you have no previous Leadville 100 time, Silver Rush 50 time, Lutsen 99er time, then you are going to be in the White Corral.
Mhm.
So it's they're strong riders, they're, A riders who get into Leadville and haven't done those races. Maybe they're super fast locally and they're super strong, but Leadville doesn't know that. Lifetime doesn't know that. So you're in the White Corral. So yes, absolutely. There could be people in the White Corral who are sub-9 riders. They just didn't do any of the qualifiers to let Lifetime know, hey, I'm really fast. Put me up in the Silver Corral.
Right.
So yes, you will have everybody from sub-9 riders to 13-hour riders in the White Corral. And that was part of the qualifier. That's how that came about, was let's start to get the people staged correctly by their ability, so that we don't have the same kind of mass start St. Kevin bottleneck where somebody from the flatlands was really fast on the flats but sucked at climbing, and then when they get to Kevin, there's 4 of those guys riding together, and all of a sudden they're backing everybody up because they hit the climb and just choked and fell over, and elevation killed them, whatever it was. And so they tried to change that to have it be a little bit more spread out throughout the entire process, from the pros to the red to the green to the but unfortunately the white, if you didn't do a qualifier, there's a lot of different talent in the White Corral.
Yeah, and it really does bottleneck. And so I just had to, remind myself to be patient, and because there's a lot of race left. And so, but it does bottleneck. And I think there is some anxiety because it's the race and you've trained for this, and there are a lot of people trying to get around, but there are a lot of people to try to get around. So it's a little nerve-wracking on that first climb.
True. So for you, did you have to push Kevin at all?
Yes, because of that bottleneck.
Just because of the volume of people there that, yep. Okay. Yeah, that has to be, first timers, you got to be able to, your head has got to be right for Leadville. No question. Your head has got to be right. So if you get to Kevin and you're like, I know I can ride the St. Kevin climb, I know I can ride it, but you can't because there's 40 people in front of you pushing. One option, start screaming. Get out of my way, rider, get out of my way, I'm coming up, and be aggressive and be loud, and maybe they'll separate for you. Maybe they can't hear you because their tongue is dragging in the dirt and they're breathing so hard, and they have no clue what's happening. Could be the case. You might not be able to. You might have to be pushing, but just know it's the beginning of the race. St. Kevin is only 1 point something miles. It's not that long. And as soon as you get to the left turn, an undeniable hard left switchback turn, that's when things will start to spread out. Mm-hmm. So the St. Kevin climb is short, it's steep, it ends. If you can get to that left turn, then mentally, all right, things are going to start to clear out. I'm not going to have to do this for, till I get the Columbine again. So
yeah. Well, I think that's true on that climb. I think that's where a lot of the altitude starts hitting people, right? Because that's where your heart really starts working hard. And if it's not used to the altitude, I think that's where it really starts hitting people. So it's a real wake-up call for a lot of people in a lot of ways. It's got so many different challenges.
Yeah, for sure, right?
Once you get to that left turn, it does peter out.
Yeah, St. Kevin's a great barometer, to how is elevation treating me? How is my gearing? How is my fitness? What's my heart rate? If you can ride the climb before the race, that's a good thing to do. Really good thing to do. It will tell you a lot.
Yeah.
About yourself and how you prepared and what your bike's doing, and so it's a good thing. So
that was another thing too, just because you said heart rate. Training not at altitude is different, obviously, than riding at altitude. And so understanding the kind of heart rate conversion for what output you should be riding at. That was another thing, as a first timer, I didn't know. So understanding, you know, if you can do kind of this output on you know, at sea level, you're doing 80% of that output at altitude. And then same kind of with the heart rate too, where you don't want to cross over a certain threshold, you know, give or take with the heart rate, but knowing that and knowing kind of what to expect for your body for you to be able to demand of your body at altitude, I think was really helpful for me in preparing and planning.
Right. There has to be a shift because it's like, you know, round numbers, I'm pushing 300 watts all day long in Chicago. When I get to Colorado, I can't push that.
Nope.
No, you can't. And there, I mean, you can't. I mean, you might be able to hit that, but that's not what you're going to sustain.
No.
You know, your head, that's another part of your head being right. You've got to be able to mentally say 240 is just fine. If I was at 300, 240 is where I can be here. And it's got to be, you've got to be able to say in your mind's eye, say, I'm good with that number showing up on my Garmin all the time, because it's going to decrease quite a bit and everybody's different. So, all right. So what would you, on your 2023 race, at what point did you say to yourself, I got this? I got this. I'm getting my buckle.
I got pretty emotional at the top of Columbine.
Columbine?
Yeah.
Okay.
At the top, because we hadn't seen it at camp because it was still snowed in July. And that's the halfway mark, right? So I was halfway there, which kind of gave me some just renewed invigoration. And then I think when I got through pipeline, and I mean, Powerline was a beast, right? But I think getting through Powerline and checking my time and seeing how I felt, I was close, but I was on track because, especially because of the time leading up to the race, I just wanted to finish with, you know, with the buckle. That was kind of my goal. And so I was really flirting with that, you know, that 12-hour mark, but getting through Powerline and seeing that I still had time, that's when I really started. I was talking to myself the whole time too. That's when I really started to kind of say, like, we're gonna do it, you know, and that kind of encouraged me. Yeah, getting through Powerline was really great. And then pipeline was another kind of marker of, we're doing great, we've got this. And then there's a small creek, like maybe 5 miles out, I think, that we did on, I think, the second day of camp. And I just had that flagged in my mind as, okay, this is when you know you're about 5 miles left. And that marker really felt like coming home, right? Like, you're almost there, right? And because that was the marker for, I forget who it was, Casey, I think, at camp. Really wanted to get back. We had that group of women that were riding together on the second day, and one of them really wanted to get back in time for like the meal cutoff, and so she took off from our group, and it was kind of about there that had happened. So that kind of stood out in my mind as, you know, a fond memory, and an indication that we're really close. And then man, that alternate, like, you don't take the same way back as you take going out, and so that brutal wall of rocks that you have to navigate, like
that brutal wall of rocks is right here, where you
evil.
come down, you cross over 4, and then all of a sudden you make a left-hand turn, and it's the kick in the teeth at 100 miles, and you're like,
Terrible.
oh my gosh. And it's all those baby head rocks, and you climb up and out of there, and then you're onto the boulevard. That is the
Yeah.
start of the boulevard. That bottom left-hand turn, loose, sandy baby head rocks. There's usually one line that you can see, and stick in the line, and you're probably going to be okay. You deviate from that line, you're going to be in baseball, volleyball, baby head size rocks, and it is going to be tough.
It was awful. I was in that, and it at points it seemed like carrying my bike was a more efficient way of doing it than pushing my bike. It was terrible. But at that point too, like I was still really close. But you know, you're just kind of laughing because of course, right? Like this is the whole I don't know. I really fell in love with the whole message of Leadville and the origin of the race series. That was another benefit of camp, right? Was learning kind of the history of the Leadville race series and the town, and kind of that shock to the identity and having to redefine and reinvent yourself. And so of course they're just gonna, you know, the man that like kicks through wall for a living, and when he spits the asphalt curdles, right? Like of course they're gonna throw this at you. But it was getting to the boulevard was another, like I kind of had these little on the way back, I had these little mile markers that from camp, right? They felt familiar, and they were another encouragement of you're almost there, right? And so you and I had ridden the boulevard together at camp, and this is where you were telling me some of the strategies for the boulevard, because you're tired, and it's really just it's long enough to feel too long. And so you have to kind of make up those games with yourself, where you were saying, okay, do, you know, stand up and do 8 strokes, and then sit down and do, you know, an equivalent amount of strokes, and just kind of, this is where you want to start to distract your mind, because everything's exhausted, including your mind. So it felt, you know, you were in my mind during the boulevard, because it was like, okay, how can I distract myself during this time that's, you know, it's a little bit of an incline, right? And so it feels harder than you want it to, and that it would normally on a normal ride when you haven't just ridden 97 miles. But having that strategy, it, you know, I saw the boulevard and I felt well equipped to deal with it, even though I was exhausted. And then after the boulevard, you get to that little turn then you can see the finish, and it's just the coolest feeling.
Yeah, I know, I've done it a lot, and it still is when you crest Hospital Hill and you see town and the people and the carpet, it is just like, yeah.
And if you can afford it, take a second to marvel, right? Like I had 5 seconds to spare, but you know, that was a really special moment, because I knew to recognize it as, this is like, you have made it.
Right.
So taking a moment to really bask in that was special, and was nice to know that, you know, this was it.
Right. No, yeah. I mean, why not? You've trained for months, right? You've done a lot of sacrificing to get to this point. And then when you crest Hospital Hill, I love your, you know, the way you framed it. If you have time, right? If you're at 11:59:01, you don't have time. But if you're at 11:01, you know, and you did it, you had a great day. I mean, crest that hill, just look there, and just absorb that moment, because you know you did it. You know, and when you come down, and then you start to climb again back up to the finish line, it's not much, but there's still a little bit of an incline. I mean, feel the energy. It's like a Tour de France, top of the mountain climb. People are everywhere. They're screaming, they're whistling, they're ringing bells. It's awesome. And take that in, man. I mean, you earned it, right? You earned it. So love it.
And then get your hug.
Get your hug from Barely.
Yep.
No, it's awesome. So for the first timers for 2024, you know, what would you do? You're going to do back-to-back years. So what would you do different for this year compared to last year?
I would give myself more time, less stress, right? I think having
More
a
time where?
plan,
What do you mean? More time?
give myself more time to train. And you don't need, like, 12 weeks is sufficient for most people. So it's not necessarily, I unfortunately had a more cramped, but give myself a little bit more time and have a plan earlier, because had I had a plan and had I known, okay, these are the times that I work, these are the times that I rest, I give myself a little bit of wiggle room. That, just having a plan would have saved myself a lot of sanity. Yeah. And then as a first timer, I highly recommend camp. It's so helpful to know the course too, because there's so much terrain that you hadn't experienced. And I think, right, having that 3D map, having the map, it's helpful. And I studied the elevation map for months, but it's different recognizing that turn and recognizing that mile marker and knowing kind of what that means for your ride. That, because the mental game is so important too, right? Like,
Yeah, for
the
sure.
that was one thing that I think really saved me, because my body was kind of a little bit underprepared. But the mental game, I think saved me, because I kind of had a plan there, and I was able to develop a plan over time. Get a bike. And have a bike early. But I think, yeah, I think it definitely felt overwhelming and it felt complicated. And I think there are some things that are complex, because there's a lot that goes into riding for 12 hours and for 105 miles, but it doesn't necessarily have to be complicated. So having that plan and seeking out resources, right? And that was something I didn't even know what resources to look for, because I went into this totally blind. But seeking out resources so that they can tell you what you don't know, and you can have a plan that doesn't feel as overwhelming and overbearing, I think is an extraordinary help for a first timer.
Yeah, I mean, totally agree. And that's why I offer the course strategy coaching, Mike at GetMyBuckle.com. Because it is, I mean, it's, back in the day when I started this thing, I didn't finish year one. I crossed the finish line, but I missed some of the course, DNF. That ate at me. I could just sign up for next year for my redemption. My personal situation was I signed up too late, and they said no. And then I called Leadville, and I'm talking to Mary Lee, and I'm pleading, oh, come on, Colorado boy, local boy, come on. And, she's saying no. And I'm like, oh, Mary Lee, come on. There's my story from the first year. And she's like, no. And then I said, oh, Mary Lee. And then I heard some rustling. And then Ken gets on the phone. He goes, what the fuck, Parda? You didn't sign up in time. Don't you understand? And I was like, well, nothing. Sign up on time next year. Yes, sir. So year 3, I signed up on time. I got in, and I was able to, get my buckle. So, but today's world might take 3 or 4, 5, 6 years to get in. And then if you're not prepared and you don't have the day that you were hoping for, and you don't get your buckle, you might not get redemption for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 more years. That's a whole different animal. So that's why, if you are going to take on Leadville and you don't have, you're like, oh man, my friend talked me into it. Now I'm doing it. Oh my God, I don't even have a bike. To get the resources, whether, to get your fitness coach, right? Check that box. I am physically prepared. Then you can get a hold of me and say, all right, now every other box is checked, and I am mentally prepared, and I know that I'm ready.
Yeah.
And if you're ready and you have all the tools to take on whatever the day throws at you, you're going to be fine. You're going to be fine. But if you don't, and you're not prepared, and then you get hypothermia, or, you don't know the course, and you take a wrong turn, or, you have the wrong gearing or you're overdressed and then you stop and pack and, then you got to, oh man, no way. There's too many things that can go wrong, right? Too many
Yep.
things.
Yeah.
When that starts happening, that's when you can easily talk yourself out of the race. And
Mhm.
you can't do that, right? This has got to stay laser focused on the only thing of I am moving forward every second until I cross the finish line. I don't care what happens. That's the
Mhm.
mindset you got to have. And that way, it's going to take an enormous catastrophic event to take you out of the race instead of, my knee hurts. My bike's not shifting good. No. So what? Keep going, figure it out, don't stop. So, oh man, anything else you do differently?
I mean, if you can train at elevation, if you can, I did spend a little time early before camp and then just a few days before the race. Just getting some time on the bike at elevation and on that terrain. I think as much of that as you can get is always helpful.
Always helpful for sure.
Mhm.
So what's your goal time for 2024?
Well, so
And by the way, wait, by the way, she finished in 11:48:30, no, 11:46:34 last year.
yep.
11:46:34 for a girl who did not have a bike in May. Or a plan,
Yep.
or, oh my
Yeah.
goodness. Holy cow.
The investment in outsourcing all of that, like, because you've spent years learning this stuff, and I've, been in the sport for 5 minutes, and so the investment in outsourcing that knowledge is definitely worth it. I don't know what my goal is. So I tore my MCL playing soccer in the winter, which has set me back a little bit, but I'm doing a ton of PT, which is just PT is just so frustrating. But um, I I don't know. I think getting an idea once I'm able to get back kind of full force, I'll start really training hard soon, and I think I don't know. I don't think that I'm close to that 9 hour mark by any means, but I think um I'd like to see. Last year was just trying to get that pacing to just kind of get the buckle. I'd like to kind of see what, you know, a less conservative strategy would look like, um and see kind of what giving myself the appropriate amount of training time can do. And I'd just like to have a good day, right? Like you've spent so much time training and putting in the work and learning the sport and, figuring out what you're going to eat and when you're going to eat it and how you're going to eat it. That day is really like a celebration of all that time that you've put in. So I think it's just such a cool story. It's such a cool inspiration, and it's such a cool gathering of people that want to do such a challenging thing. So one of my goals is just really being fit enough to enjoy that as much as possible.
Oh, great. Is it going to start with a 10 or 11?
Ooh.
Ooh.
Let's say I'm hoping a 10.
All right.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, if you can get through your MCL stuff and get going, I think you can do it.
Thank you.
Oh, I know you've got the right mindset, which is huge. And then I know you're going to follow through and you're going to do your training and it's going to be great. You've got a year of experience underneath your belt, and not to overtrain, don't overcook the sauce, things
The
like that, rest,
matches.
recover. So
Yeah.
great. No, I think, well, best of luck. And
Thank you.
you're not going to be at camp, but look me up when you get to Leadville. We'll go ride the course again. Whatever, you bring your friends and we'll just have a good day on the course.
Absolutely.
They're training.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you, Kelly, for sharing your experience and leaving some crumbs for the upcoming first timers.
I hope it was helpful. Learn from my mistakes.
Absolutely. I mean, that's how we learn, right? And, to share, if all the people that are on the show sharing their mistakes, that's going to help the people, help you first timers, not do those things. Put you that far, that much closer to your buckle. So good luck. And thank you again. Look forward to seeing you. Look forward to see you at the finish line.
Likewise.
10 with a 10. It's going to say a
Hopefully
10
you'll
here.
be there for a couple hours already.
There you go. All right, Leadville Racers. Want to remind you that there's a lot of companies that are aligning with the show. Carb Rocket is one of them. They're offering, I think, 25% off your first order with Get My Buckle discount code. So is Infinite Nutrition. Also Bird Wheels, the rope spoke carbon hoop super light race wheels, super comfortable. They're offering 10% off with Bird Buckle 2024, and CTS, which is Carmichael Training Systems. They're offering to waive the athlete registration fee if you sign up for coaching through them. And then also we've got a new manufacturer, 100% Optics, cool glasses. They're going to donate some glasses to the channel, and I will be either selling them or raffling them off. I'm not exactly sure what how we're going to go about it, but all the proceeds from those donated glasses are going to go to the Leadville Legacy Trail 100 Foundation. So another way to give back for me, which is great. So keep your eyes open on the channel. I'll post some more of the discount codes and the manufacturers that are joining us to help you guys, save a couple bucks and set the compass for Leadville and get the right equipment and be ready for race day. So thank you again. We'll see you guys at the finish line.